All right, I'm Siobhan, and the game that I've chosen to analyze is Portal 2. And specifically, we're looking at the end of Chapter 5, The Escape, where you finally defeat GLaDOS and you think everything's good. But Wheatley, who is your kind of partner throughout the game, this spherical robot, is connected to the system and turns evil. Spoiler alert. So for the design elements, the first thing that I noticed was the use of space. The environment that you're in is very wide and open, which for me is very unnerving, makes me feel very vulnerable and exposed. But at the same time, we think we're going to safety. So we are going up in a tube, which makes us confined and trapped at the same time, kind of making us a viewer in this experience. There are also a lot of lines in use. These two bars specifically are kind of trapping us compositionally, and really everything's pointing into Wheatley in the center, which really directs our attention. The use of color is super important. When you think you win, there's confetti coming down, all the lights are blue and soft and white. But then there's a big shift to all these red tones, which is not only highlighting Wheatley's motives, but showing a sense of danger in your situation. The use of shape is also super important. Wheatley is this round robot, which is a shape that is associated with being trustworthy and friendly. Like you can see in this picture, all these characters are very bubbly and fun. But when he gets connected to the system, his silhouette is no longer this trustworthy sphere. It's a more organic, threatening blob, which kind of removes that sense of trust that you have, which is kind of foreshadowing to what's about to happen. And then, of course, these little triangles popping out of the ground is very sinister, especially with the red light. Some other visual elements that were key in this scene to really make it stand out is the lighting. So on the left, you can see everything's very soft and gentle, very light. But as the scene progresses, you get this shift in color and directionality and a harshness to the light that produces darker shadows on him, and also this mysterious, evil red underlight that is just very, not a good guy would have that. Another random thing is the crosshair design. Instead of just a simple crosshair, we have this cool portal symbol, which is representative of the gun's abilities to shoot 2 different colored portals. So I thought that design is just something unique in the game that I enjoy. The interactive design. So throughout the game, it's very interactive as you must solve puzzles to progress. So this scene, you're directly responsible for overriding the system and allowing GLaDOS to shut down and Wheatley take her spot. So it makes you feel responsible for what's happening. You've kind of caused this, which makes you more invested in the game. And the narrative design is also really well done. So the dialogue, even though you yourself are not talking as the character Shell, you are listening to these two robots kind of have this back and forth trying to convince you, like, do this, or don't do this. And on top of that, the characters are very emotional. There's a level of humor to it, especially Wheatley. Very funny, very interesting voices, and it makes you a little bit more invested than if it was silent or if it was just like beep, beep, boop, boop robots. You can really connect to them more, which is why Wheatley's transformation is very betraying and unexpected, which leads to the next thing. This scene flips your expectations in many ways because you think you finally defeated the villain when Wheatley's character shifts. You also think you're going to escape in the tube, game over, when you get sent back down into the rest of the game. It's a huge mood shift in this moment. I remember, feeling a little creeped out in this giant room when I played, thinking, you were almost killed by GLaDOS in this moment, saved by a friend, and then almost killed by them. So although this scene isn't exactly a cutscene after you're trapped in the tube, you can still look around and control what you're seeing. You aren't able to affect what's happening, which means you're just kind of a viewer in this moment. which allows you to really enjoy the narrative and savor what's shifting. The audio design is well done. The character voices have a lot of personality, like I was mentioning. It's a little creepy when Wheatley's voice shifts. You can tell there's more of a sinister tone to it. As his laugh deepens, it's a little creepier than his friendly, bubbly voice. The room has a lot of echoes, which adds to the sense of magnitude of the room. And just some subtle music in the background really helps ties it all together. So for the post-mortem, I actually found a video online of two of the creators discussing, some of the changes that the game went through. And these are the main issues that are found in typical games, mostly with planning, communication, etc. But I found that these didn't necessarily impact Portal 2 because of the way it was developed. So their development was extremely flexible and fluid. There were no giant design docs on the game. That's just something Valve apparently doesn't do. So they were able to adapt the game over time. They did a lot of play tests throughout development. So at the start, they initially didn't have a cohesive story. They just had little bits and pieces. So players were a little bit confused. And it really was able to give a lot of input to the direction of the game. So for example, at the beginning, Shell wasn't the main character. There weren't even any portals, and people didn't like that. And they were able to adjust and change it without getting too deep in the production. Something else that they did was expand their team as needed. So they started off small. They broke out into groups of just a few people to design and experiment and figure out different elements of the game. They built it up to set goals, figure out how realistic this would be. And then when they were ready to start producing and shipping a game, they grew the team to what they needed to complete production. And I think this was a very effective workflow, as you can see by really cool results and a really flexible development. So I'll end it off with this fun little quote. The reason they made Portal 2 was actually just because a bunch of people wanted to work on the game. They didn't have an idea for it. They just wanted to work on it. And I think that intrinsic motivation really shines through. They put a lot of effort into planning the visual elements, the interactive portal mechanic, and it all really shines, especially in this one scene that I really remember when I played this game as a kid. It really stood out to me. So that is all. Thank you.